Hi, I'm Jeff Billings with Lost Battalion Games, and I'm going to give you a quick tour of our battle map system that we use inside Regimental Play. So as you can see here, there are two of the map borders that we use, and I just want to show you quickly that they're locking in between each other. It's a standard puzzle cut that we use inside of our company, but this provides the bordering system so you can size your map up or down. We provide enough border elements in the Regimental Play so that you can border two small maps and have up to 8 people playing in 2 separate games at the same time off of the same campaign. So the darker contour lines right here are at 40 feet difference in elevation. As I'm showing you right here, this one's at 400 right down by the stream. It's at the bottom of the depression. And you can see above it, it translates all the way up here to the 440 line, which goes up on this beginning of the hill. One of the things that we do in Rally Around the Flag is we treat all of these grown-up green areas that you see here where the trees are, get treated as an elevation level, and that's why we use the 40-foot divisor between the two different levels. So if you're on the hilltop here and you're shooting in a hilltop off screen, you'll be able to hit somebody on the 440 line because it crosses across the trees. The movement arrows in Rally Around the Flag allow a unit to either march or charge in the case of the red arrows, or advance in line formation in the case of the black arrow. The black arrow is also used to govern other aspects of gameplay, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, if you'll notice off right here on the side, you have these arrows right here where it says 2. That means through this particular square, only 2 arrows can be placed during a turn. This governs how difficult it was to get troops moving in certain ground, and restricts the number of charges that can come off or the number of marches that can be going on inside of a particular square. It does not, however, restrict the black arrows. This only applies to the red ones when they're placed. So you can have multiple units advancing in line and preparing for combat. So I've deployed the 40th New York on the board. This is from the 3rd Brigade. And as you can see, this unit is fully inside of the wooded area. Whenever a unit is completely inside of cover, it counts as being in cover and gets a modifier against rifle musket fire against it. I'm going to place a maneuver arrow down, the black advance arrow. And whenever you place an arrow, best way to do is just hold down your unit, and you can place it as long as it has 2 points of contact on the outside of the arrow. It shapes the direction it can move in. So all these directions that I'm moving the arrow to are the directions that this particular unit can move in. You don't have to go the full distance of the arrow. You can go any portion of the distance of the arrow. But in this particular case, I wanted to show you how that worked. You notice that this particular arrow, though, covers 2 contour lines, one on one side of the stream and one on the other side of the stream. This effectively makes it rough ground when you're crossing it. So you can't move the full length of the arrow in this case. That's the case where you have to use the back of the arrow for slowed movement. You just stand the arrow on end and move your troop around to the other side, just like that. So I'm going to move it just out into the clear ground, and we're going to go ahead and do the second part of this next. The unit actually would just touch 2 points of contact against the bottom, hold down the arrow, pick up your troop, and you move him right to the end of the arrow. And you can position the unit anywhere from here to here for facing. Here we have an artillery battery getting ready to fire at the 1st Brigade, 12th Illinois Cavalry. The strength of the 12th Illinois Cavalry is currently 4. The range separating the 2 units would be measured with a measuring stick. This is the same method that was used by H.G. Wells when he started doing miniatures games, and Craig won the H.G. Wells Award for the best miniatures game in the 1970s for Rally Around the Flag. As you can see here, this shell distance is exceeded, so we have to go to a different stick, in this case shot, and he's within shot range. There's no higher elevation between the shooter and the target, so in the basic rules this would be a legal shot. We would take the shot with no modifiers. We would need a 7, which is the firing number on the artillery, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, the strength of the unit. So we'd have to roll an 11 or a 12 to get a hit here. Not very good. However, if the cavalry moved down to the water's edge, at that point they would be within shell range. and we would be rolling with a +2 for shell. So in that case, we would have to, instead of getting an 11, we would have to roll at least a 9, add the 2 to get the 11 we need for the target. You notice that the target number doesn't actually change, it's just the die roll modifier that changes with the rolls. And then finally, if we can get them down to canister range, say the guns were prolonged forward and they were within canister range, in this case you would add +4 to the die, and that would give you a roll of, instead of 9, you'd be down to the actual 7 to get the hit. A cavalry needs to roll a 3 or better basically to wipe the battery out. In that case it would be quite easy to clear a battery once you get close to it and if it's unsupported. The way the game takes care of that to give support to a battery is if a regiment is directly behind the battery, in this case the strength of the battery would count not 1 but the additional regiment also, so it would count as 4. The firing number needed would be a 6 to clear the battery. Still pretty good, but not automatic. When troops get this close together and they're within 1 black arrow of each other, they're not allowed to move anymore. The only way they can take an action at this point is to either charge, which would be a red arrow, and that would be placed basically like this. Unit would be brought forward and the charge would happen like that. In this case, because this regiment is hitting the flank of the other one, this regiment doesn't count 3 strength, it only counts 1. So it's basically losing 2 of its strength from being charged in the flank. Rather simple and elegant way to handle that. Second part of this is, how do you move when you get in that close if you can't charge? Well, the way you do it is something called a tactic. And tactics are listed on your movement cards as you're seeing right there. And based on that movement, you can make a tactical movement. Now, tactical movements are always done with the back end of the arrow. So you can move from here to here and attach yourself to the side like that. Because the leading edge at this point is behind the flank of the target regiment, this unit can fire into the flank. And again, anytime you're going into a flank, you don't count the full strength, you only count the 1 man that's on the end. So it makes this unit quite vulnerable to fire. It also makes it quite vulnerable to being charged when it's flanked.